you been wondering which direction to tear your paper? Let me share what I know. Let's start off with a nice example that will let you see what's going on here. Here is a piece of Colorblock cardstock from this pastel pad. Now, this is actually a white core paper. What that means is on the inside of this paper, it is actually white, and the color is more or less printed on to one side or both sides. So the actual paper color itself is going to be white when we tear into it. So when I tear into this, you can see that the paper is white here and fully exposed. And I took my dominant hand and I pulled toward myself in order to expose the white on this side. So there's going to be white on both sides. It's going to be the same amount. But if you want it to be showing on, it really depends on which location you want the tear to be on, whether you're tearing this way or tearing the other way. So as you can see here, the paper underneath is actually white. And one of the benefits of tearing like this is that the fibers are exposed and torn apart, whereas on the surface it's smooth, tends to be smoother. It makes it a lot easier for the ink to grab on and to collect more of that grungy ink color when it's already torn. So on one side you have a white edge that you have to decide whether or not you want this to be visible, and on the other side it makes it a lot easier to color with ink if you wanted to. So you could get a nice distinctly different color here if you wanted, or you could go with white, or you could do something in between, I suppose. So another thing to think about here is that some papers have a grain where the fibers tend to be aligned in one direction or another. And whether or not if you're tearing with the grain, then it makes it easier to tear in that direction. If you're tearing against the grain, then you tend to have that situation where you're tearing off little bits at a time. So we saw here, when we tore it in this direction, we got a pretty easy tear. Let's see what happens when we tear in the other direction. So you can see here we seem to be going against the grain because it didn't really want to stick with me. It was trying to veer off on its own. You'll get unpredictable things like this, or the jagged edges, or having to tear off little bits, or in those situations where you might have a thinner paper and you're trying to tear it off with your ruler. If you're going against the grain, you might have a more jagged edge than if you're going with the grain. Again, kind of depends on the paper what you're going to get. So to some extent, there may be some need for experimentation, especially when you get into papers that are one-offs or not as commonly used. So this is this particular pad of Colorblock paper. Not all Colorblock paper is white core, presumably. It could be that certain different kinds of cardstock they have are going to look different. So that's an example of white core. Here are a couple examples of solid core, where when you tear into it, the paper is going to be more or less the same color on the inside as the outside. Since you have that broken fibers, that kind of adds to this kind of softer look there. But more or less, the inside is going to be the same color. And you can see here, you've got a more unpredictable tear when you're tearing in a different direction. Here we have a piece of cardstock from Park Lane. And I believe this one, it says solid core. So this one is going to also have the same color on the inside, more or less. So you tear it this way, you're getting this kind of action. If you tear it this way, let's see what happens. We're getting a little straighter tear. So, and I am tearing this paper for a reason. I have a little project in mind that's going to be using some torn up papers. So So that's an example of solid core. Now here is a somewhat specialized product that you may have things that kind of look like this anyway, not unintentionally, and then others where it is intentional. And the only one that I really know about is this Sizzix Reveals paper. And this paper is described as, what did she describe it as? Color core, where the thought is when you tear into it, you're going to get a color that's basically a distinctly lighter shade of the outside color. So let's see what we get when we tear into this dark green cardstock. It is very, very much lighter in color here. So this is what they're describing as color core, where the core is a different color, but still, you know, similar, just a different shade. We go in this direction, we have a different character from having this tear. So you may want to experiment with what you're tearing to see if you want to try to get something with a wider strip on there, or if you want a narrower strip. Could have different looks. This tends to happen more when the paper is thicker. That way you've got more of a gradient to come across. Or it could be that you're kind of like tearing, kind of like cardboard. You might be coming in between two layers where the front and back might be a little stiffer than the rest of it. So that is a really enticing example here. Another kind of cardstock that I have somewhere, but I just can't find, is Tim Holtz's what did he call it? It's basically a craft cardstock with a different color on top. And so the thought there is kind of similar to this. You've got like a coating on top that's a different color. He's got the different shades, black, red, etc. And then when you tear into it, you get something like this, where the inside or the back side is tan cardstock colored. Or you could sand into it, sand away at the surface and expose the craft color there. I think you'll see somebody like Crafty by Tony or Louise Heinzel has probably experimented a lot with that kind of material. And you could sand this kind of thing as well. If you wanted to, say, emboss it, you could sand down the raised images and get you know, this color coming through where you sand it down. You could do similarly with a white color cardstock, white core cardstock, but you would be exposing the white, and then you'd have the opportunity to let the ink absorb into that more easily, or do something else to you know, work with the white core there. All right, let's have a look at what happens with copy paper. Here's a piece of 20-pound copy paper. Let's tear in this direction. We have, you know, it's going to be a little difficult to see, so maybe here I can help you out. This one managed to have a pretty wide stretch there when torn in that direction. Tearing in this direction, you can see we're going against the grain. That's why it's all wobbly, and the part that is exposed is narrower. Here's 32-pound copy paper. So this is the nice hammer mill paper that's really smooth. Got a nice smooth surface that we could have a look at. Let's tear it in one way. We've got a bit of a tear there. Let's see what happens when we tear it this way. Way more wobbly. So I don't remember if this was in the same orientation as that paper. I might have cut off a different piece. You'll want to see with the papers you're working with what the direction of the grain is, because it's not always in the same direction. Now when you're moving on to stuff like book pages, it is going to be you know, hit or miss what's going to happen with your book pages. So you should take a page from a book you're working with and see what happens. So here's a piece of dictionary page that I have put some paint on that I'm wanting to use this for collage. So you can see here, there's a bit of that exposed there, and it's a little ragged. Let's see what happens when we tear it in a different direction. All right, it looks fairly similar between these two sides. So you're really going to want to test your papers and see what happens to find out how much of an edge you can get and do a little experimentation. Moving on to more exotic examples, I guess. This, I believe it's a tissue paper. I think this is tissue paper. Or, oh, never mind. I think this is a piece of the really thin kanchi washi paper. Let's see what happens when we tear this. So let's go in this direction. Tears pretty easily. See about this direction. Wobbly. Yep, this is going in a different direction there. Since I've stained it with some sprays, the color has gone all the way through, so there might have been, I mean, the edge is still softer and should be able to take more ink, but it effectively looks like a color core paper, or solid core paper, because I have stained it all the way through. Here's the thicker Hosho washi paper. Let's see what happens here. It really doesn't want to tear. Got a nice feathery uneven edge there. So that's one direction. Let's see about this direction. I would say this one might have torn a little more smoothly, but it's really not that different between those two. So hopefully looking at these examples might help you with your own endeavors in tearing paper and giving you some ideas about what you might come to expect and how you might be able to use it. So today I am making this video for the sake of ABC April 2026, hosted by Crafty by Tony and Seven Plaza. And my thought for today, it's the letter G, and I was going to go with grungy green. So I got a lot of green here. I suppose I should have led with that instead of keeping it a secret, but here we are. And my idea was I would do a library pocket style, where I take a bunch of these torn pieces and glue them together and overlap them and make them a pocket. So in order to make it a library pocket, I'm just going to glue these pieces together so that I'll make sure that it's wider than this and a little more tall than the pocket I want to have, so that I have something to fold underneath. So I'm thinking this would be a great piece, but perhaps a little overkill with that very extensive edge there. So this could be a good piece. Yeah, I picked a couple colors that I really liked. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to work with this one. I might save this for another day, since I don't feel like this ink was really covering it in a way that I thought made sense. And I'm going with green, and I don't have a whole lot of green, so maybe this combination of colors isn't going to work out. So we'll put that aside for now. But we got these. We got this. We've got some of this. I'm just going to go ahead and do a little collaging and make myself a little happy pocket. So I'm going to make a fairly stiff piece be the top, and then maybe we'll go down in color gradient like that. And these pieces are definitely wider than they need to be, and perhaps other pieces for other collage opportunities. We got this, we got that. Maybe I'll just put a strip of this across. Maybe I'll use some of this just for decoration. I love grungy green. Do you guys like green? feel like it's one of my go-to colors. And that's, I mean, part of it is it's just really easy to use green with all sorts of things. And let's see which direction this text is going. Could have a bit of a grassy look, although it's not going in the right direction for me here. I'm going to start with gluing some of this down so it's not just flopping all over the place. And then we'll move to putting on a little more decoration. I could potentially use this to make an extra pocket. That would be a little, you know, a little bit of a small tuck spot. I think this is a little too thin for that application, so maybe I'll save that for another day. So I just want to make sure that I have enough glue to cover as far as I'm going to be overlapping this. Oops, I just touched my glue. Yeah. All right. Nope, I want a little more overlap than that. A little less overlap. All right. We got that nice overlapping look there. Then we got some of this. I just really like the colors in this piece of book page. I don't know if it makes any particular sense, but the way that this has been torn, since I tore this away from me, I'm not seeing a lot of that lighter edge there. So all the painty color is coming out on top there. And I'm not worrying about, you know, the direction of the text. I think it actually looks kind of cool that it's going up and down like that. Kind of goes with the direction of all the paint. I'm just liking that look. And then maybe we can have again tearing away from me to try to minimize the wider edge there, because in this case the paint is sitting on top. It hasn't soaked through. Just wanted to get a couple pieces on there for a little color. And this thicker paper tends to be a little tougher to tear. Some of these Japanese rice papers can be difficult like that. So we got that. I see additional opportunity to do some, you know, additional embellishments on this pocket, but I was really aiming for like a grungy look there. And to top that off, I'm thinking that this top here is going to have just a touch of that darker color to finish it off. And we'll see where we need to fold to wrap this around and make it library pocket style. So let's see. We just need enough for it to fold over just a little bit. I think one of the tricks that can be handy here is having a bit of something to brace your paper against so that you can make a nice fold if you don't want to use a scoreboard directly. All right, we've got that. Should figure out where I want to angle this. I don't know if maybe I want this or this. It's tough because I like both sides here. Maybe it's going to be, maybe I want to preserve this white streak here and then cut off this part here. Now, when I overlap these, I purposefully put the top one on top on the bottom side so that when you're slipping things in and out of this pocket, you're not going to be catching on all these additional pieces and potentially delaminating them. So we've got that. We'll make an attempt to fold over these sides here. We've got quite a number of, well, we've got several pages here that we're folding over, so that makes it a little difficult. That could cause one to maybe lean more towards having a single base and then having the decorations on top after it's been folded, or as an option. Let's see if we can make this one work. This side is going to be a lot tougher. I'm thinking I will glue these down and then maybe glue these, or here where it's overlapping, I don't actually need to have this overlap on the back side, so I can cut down on the bulk here and cut that down just a little bit so there's less of that to fold over. Ugh, well, probably should have thought of that earlier. Well, and now we have this situation here where it's going to be particularly bulky if we don't cut off this little corner. So we want to avoid having, you know, a triple layer of pocket here if we don't need it. All right, here we are. I think it's looking pretty good. I'm going to, as is per usual for me, I'm going to glue down this bottom here. See if I can find my bone folder to help me smush this down a bit. Do you guys like green? Is that a color that you find easy to work with as well, or is there a different color that, you know, by preference or just versatility you'd rather use? I'm very curious to know what everyone's color preferences are. To what extent are your palettes chosen by, you know, what you like versus what you're trying to accomplish? Just going to glue down this side. It's not so bad after having removed some of that paper here. Still may need to put down a binder clip to help keep this down because it's fairly thick there. And so we've got a little pocket here that is not encumbered by these other layers and has a nice grungy green look. All right, since I don't have a tag ready built for this from last year, maybe I'll make a quick one here. See if I can find my supplies amidst this pile of things. I had taken a piece of this cardstock that I'd tea dyed, did a little stamping on it, and since well, we've got a gull-like bird here to go with the green theme, and I thought maybe this would be nice. Maybe I'll do a little fussy tearing. I think I will go in this direction so that I can expose some of that, some more of that edge, so that I can give it a little distinct coloration on the torn direction. Then maybe I could glue this on, maybe put something underneath there to kind of break up that smooth edge, and then see what else I've got laying around within arm's length of my workspace right here. So let's see. I don't think I had intentionally cut this piece to be so close to the size of this, so that's kind of nice. All right, and then we could probably take something. I don't know if that might be too yellow for this one. Maybe this would be a better fit there. I'll just take a piece of this. Could be kind of like a, you know, serve the same purpose as I would think like a little piece of washi might do. Creating like a thin piece of interest. Right. I'm liking the combination of colors there. May just be me. Let's see what else I have. Got a various green and greenish things. I got this green little ticket I can put somewhere. Got some of these 49 and Market faux stamps. Maybe something a little darker would go. I think that would be a nice combination. So which color do we think? This one or this one? Maybe I'll go like this. And like that. Just trying to get all that green, that lovely green onto this little tag so that I can complete the look. Sure, let's go ahead and put that there. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and round these corners instead of worrying about getting a tag shape. And oh, we could put this in the center. That's a little different. Why not? Now I'm just going to round the corners just to make sure that it can easily come in and out of my pocket. Since it's on this lightish green cardstock, it's easy enough to write on the back of. And here we have it. We've got a little grungy green pocket. We've got a little gull-like bird hiding in there, hiding amongst the, I don't know, seaweeds or marsh plants or what have you. And we got plenty of space in this pocket. I love it. Could do a little more rounding. Nope. I don't know if I think having the corners be sharp might make it look more like the library pocket aesthetic I'm going for. I might go back and do a little more additional stamping or, you know, add a sticker or something like that. Since this pocket, this gull, probably should have brought it a little higher or something. I don't know. Anyway, I had a great time putting this together. Hope the information I shared was useful, and thanks for watching.